Okay, so if you remember my last few videos on The Last of Us, you would know I had initially given the show praise, but in literally the next video, the show was kind of falling off. Originally, my plan was to make a review on each episode, but with how the show was going at the time, I didn't want to make a video with my opinions flip flopping every time a new episode would drop. So I decided to wait until the end of the season to gather my thoughts and make a final review with the season. So, what do I think of the season overall? Let's talk about it, because I sure do have a lot to talk about. Let me start by saying I'm not going to be hating on any actors in the show. I'm not that kind of review channel and I never will be. I do not care for the looks of any actors and nor should you. The only thing that should matter is how the character is portrayed by the actor and if they did a good job, which everyone in this season did to the best of their ability. Season 2 of The Last of Us had a lot of weight on its shoulders before the season even came out. The reason for that being the game it was adapting and the controversy around it. The Last of Us community has been divided ever since the second game came out. Some people praising the game for making bold decisions, introducing new characters and game mechanics, while the entire rest of the fan base bashed the game for how they treated Joel, issues with the pacing of the game, and the characters within it. So Season 2 had a lot of pressure on it to adapt the game and make it better than the game ever was. I personally enjoyed the game, but there were still issues with it I had hoped the show would fix. But after finishing The Last of Us Season 2, Season 2 managed to be worse than the game ever was. So many inconsistencies with the characters and their decisions. Straight up mischaracterizations damn near making the characters completely different from their game adaptations. And story changes that made said story fall flat by the end of the season. Ellie throughout the entire season is flipping back and forth on whether or not she wants to go on this revenge quest. Ellie tortures and kills Abby's friends in the show, but in the very next scene feels bad about it, claiming she didn't mean to hurt them. Whereas Ellie in the game didn't care about killing any of Abby's friends until she killed Mel, realizing she had taken things too far, making her question if the path she was taking was really worth it, but ultimately going through with her plan until she loses everything in the process. The game portrays this not through words, but through actions. Throughout the entire game, we play through it killing any and everything in our path to find and kill Abby, through very questionable means. Through these decisions we make in the game, Ellie goes through a dark path, neglecting the people around her, pushing them away until they are either dead or want nothing to do with her anymore. But in the show, it's the complete opposite. The prime example everyone's been bringing up is Ellie being excited over Dina's pregnancy, whereas in the game, Ellie shunned Dina, calling her a burden and placing a wedge between them for the rest of their days in Seattle. Another example being Ellie barely killing any WLF or Seraphites. Say what you want about game Ellie being unrealistic and there's no way she'd be able to kill as many people as she does, but Ellie as a character being able to do that shows she would do literally anything to get her revenge on Abby, whereas the show has Ellie kill only 4 people, and every fight she encounters has her needing to be saved by somebody else. The show made Ellie incompetent, barely able to fight and survive on her own, literally needing Dina to help her get through Seattle, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to do anything on her own. Having scenes of Dina practically babying Ellie until she realizes they can't do things a certain way or else they'd get killed. These are not the same characters from the game. Hell, this is not the same Ellie from Season 1. It's like they gave all of Ellie's smart characteristics and gave them to Dina. Even at times feeling like Dina was more upset about Joel's death than Ellie was, when they both could have been equally as smart and angry. I don't know why making one of them smart had to result in the other being damn near useless outside of her immunity. Yet she's somehow able to sneak into a wolf hospital undetected and immediately finding Nora. The show picks and chooses when they want Ellie to be able to handle her own, and it's very inconsistent, messing with the story as a result. Speaking of the story, they changed it up a lot compared to the game. With that being said, I wasn't completely against all the changes they made. I enjoyed the Jackson fight scene with all the infected. That was my favorite sequence in the entire show. But then there are story changes that made no sense whatsoever. Why would Tommy not want to go after Abby as soon as he found out where they were? Why did they need to cast a vote on whether or not they should go if Ellie was planning on going no matter what they would say? Why did they decide to introduce Isaac in this season if he has nothing to do with Ellie and her story? The entire point of Ellie's part of the game is that she walks right into the middle of a war going on with 2 opposing factions, knowing absolutely nothing about them other than that they keep getting in her way. So why are we getting anything with Isaac if we didn't meet him until Abby's section of the game? He's completely disconnected from Ellie's plot this season anyway. So we could have gone without his scenes and nothing would have changed for Ellie whatsoever. I understand wanting to foreshadow season 3, but I can't justify it if that's what you're going to do for half of the season. An entire half of an already short season was dedicated to foreshadowing what's to come in season 3, when it should have been focused on Ellie and her story. She knows nothing about these people and nor does she care. Why are we getting any scenes with WLF officials? What, for more context on the group? We don't need context. That's the entire point of Ellie's section. We don't know anything until we get to Abby. The game Adaptation is a perfect example of non-linear storytelling. You're not told everything in an order of events where everything is being explained to you and exactly what is happening at that moment. You learn snippets of what's happening around you in little dialogue segments you hear from WLF and Seraphites when you encounter them around the city, along with notes and files you find while looting different areas. Nobody is telling you anything. You don't get any real dialogue context until you get to Abby's section, where you get context to certain parts and why things are the way that they are. However, in the show, everything is linear. You get told everything going on with the characters and how they're feeling and going through at that point in time. You might be aware of the saying, show don't tell. It's used a lot in talking videos about bad writing in film and TV, and, well, in the case of The Last of Us, it's not showing anything, and rather telling us everything, when we don't need to be told everything going on at the moment. Ellie should not know why Abby did what she did. She goes through the entire game without knowing that. And do you know why? Because it doesn't matter to her, and it wouldn't have changed her course of action throughout the game. But in the show, Ellie is told what Joel did in her first encounter with one of Abby's friends. And in the segment of the show where there should be moments of no talking, like when Dina is cleaning up Ellie after her encounter with Nora, in the game, Ellie only says one thing, that she made her talk. But in the show, Ellie gives Dina an entire exposition dump on why Abby did what she did to Joel. That could have went unsaid. She didn't need to say anything. It would have been so much more impactful if Ellie didn't say anything and showed through her actions and through her body language that she was uncomfortable with what she did and she didn't know how to feel anymore. She didn't need to say anything because Dina already understood. In my opinion, this scene is inferior to the game's version in every way. Ellie crossed a line. She inflicted the exact same pain Abby gave to Joel onto somebody else. She could barely talk. Her hands were shaking, doing nothing but heavy breathing after she got back to the theater. But in the show, she walks in the theater all fine. No real impact from what she did to Nora, just moving on, almost like nothing happened. Jesse's character in the show is completely different to how he was in the game. I don't hate the show's version of Jesse, however, I don't like how they turned his character into the verbal opposition to Ellie, rather than making Ellie do bad things in the show, making the viewers think for themselves that she's being selfish and doing bad things, and having the viewers come to that conclusion on their own instead of being told so by Jesse. Throughout the entirety of Season 2, the show has opted for more expanded dialogue segments where the game was more subtle, ultimately causing the show to fall flat because rather than the characters actually doing something that shows them being selfish and self-centered, they'd rather tell you exactly what is happening on screen right in front of you. Overall, I had such high hopes for this season, and I really hoped that it would be able to take an already great story of The Last of Us 2, take its shortcomings and make them better, but it's like literally every bad decision that could have been made for the story of this season was made in the end. The show tried so hard to make Ellie likable while at the same time making her do terrible things, ultimately making her inconsistent and annoying at times to watch. The pacing was very slow and boring during the middle of the season, then somehow managed to rush the ending by adding scenes that ultimately didn't matter to the overall plot of the season, only to foreshadow what's to come in Season 3, as a result making this season feel cluttered and unfinished. I'm seriously disappointed with how the season turned out, and honestly, with how dragged out The Last of Us platform has been in recent years, I really do not care for any new content coming out in the near future, especially after hearing the possibility of a Season 4 about the Santa Barbara section of the game. The last, 20 minutes. But we'll just have to see how things go for the rest of The Last of Us Season 2. And honestly, unscripted, with how the internet has been handling the show, Season 2 of the show, and how bad it turned out, they're not actually giving substantial criticism. They're only purely going after Bella Ramsey and her acting as Ellie, and more so how she looks, and that's not getting us anywhere, honestly. That's why I mentioned earlier that I would not be mentioning anything about the acting or with Bella Ramsey or anything like that, because she is a good actor. She gives really good performances in Season 1 and in Season 2 at times. I just solely believe that the problems going on with the show is purely because of the writing. It has nothing to do with her, and it has nothing to do with how she is portraying the character. Because at the end of the day, actors don't make their own stories. They don't write the scripts. They don't do anything like that. They're being told to do so by directors, by writers. The writers are at fault, and the direction that the show is being taken is the reason why the show is bad. Not Bella Ramsey, not Isabella Merced, and not Pedro Pascal. None of the actors are at fault for anything going on with the season. It is purely the writing. So they should not be getting blamed for anything going on with the season and how it turned out. Because say whatever you want about how this other actor should have been casted as a role of Ellie, that doesn't change the fact that the season was still ass. It changes nothing. And the writers are going to look at the criticism that the show is receiving and only see the stuff that they're saying about Bella Ramsey and then not take any real criticism that they're saying and just go ahead with whatever bad story plan that they have going on, because everyone that's complaining about the show so far that I've seen is only saying things about how Bella Ramsey looks, and it's weird, it's rude, it's disgusting. We're not going to get any good storytelling with The Last of Us Season 2 if we're only going after the actors involved in it and not the actual writing. The Last of Us as a community was already toxic. I was well aware of this. But as a community, we are not getting anywhere with this, and it is honestly sad. Will season 3 and possibly 4 of The Last of Us be good? I really hope so. And I really hope that the writers get their act together and make good stories and make better stories than the ones that they were already going off of, instead of making their own original stuff that ultimately does nothing for the story. And I hope that the Last of Us community can stop ripping into Bella Ramsey for something that is not her fault and something that she cannot control. No one can control their face. If you want to blame somebody for being a character in a show, blame the people that casted her, not her, because she's done a great job with the character so far. And if there's any shortcomings in her acting and in whatever's going on in the show, that has nothing to do with her. So leave it alone. Alright? Stop being weird. That's all. That's all I really have to say now. Hope you guys have a good June as I'm recording this. And I'll see you guys in the next video, whatever that may be. So stay tuned for that.